Okay, sorry to disappoint those who asked me the whole time if I'm going to speak about Donald Trump today. I'm sorry for the disappointment, and that is that I'm not speaking about Donald Trump. I am speaking about Moshiach. And if Donald Trump happens to be a messianic phenomenon, then so be it. But I have zero interest in talking about Donald Trump. My interest is only to speak about the Moshiach. And so who's that? In any case, the Alter Rebbe tells us, when they asked the Alter Rebbe, how do you know Mashiach is here? The Alter Rebbe said, you'll see it in the newspapers. Now, the Alter Rebbe, we all know, is very deep. When the Alter Rebbe says we'll see it in the newspapers, it doesn't mean, of course, okay, wait till the newspapers, you'll see it. Someone can read this, says, okay, don't worry about it. When it will happen, but it's gonna happen, you'll see it in the newspapers. Of course you're gonna see it in the newspapers. It's gonna be the greatest thing ever. The Alter Rebbe was really saying, I think, is that Moshiach is a process. Moshiach means the world becoming synchronized with Elokus, the world becoming godly. So when you see that everything in the world is aligning itself with Elokus, when you see that what you're learning in Chassidus and the Maimer, you're reading in the newspaper, and the two of them are matching up completely, then you know Moshiach is here, even if technically we don't see the third Beis HaMikdash yet, but you can actually see that we are in Moshiach, and the Rebbe told us to open up our eyes. One of the fundamental and essential principles or teachings of Chassidus, core powerful teachings of Chassidus, Perek Lamed Vav and Perek Lamed Zayin in Tanya. Over there the Alter Rebbe lays out the purpose of creation and the purpose of all of existence. And as the Alter Rebbe sees it, that the Eibishter has a dream, the Eibishter has a desire, Nesava HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyas lo dira b'tachtainim. The Eibishter has a desire to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds. That means that which is the most hostile to Elokus, that which is the most inhospitable to Hashem, that which is the most anti-godly, will be refined, will be elevated, will be transformed, and it will become receptive to Elokus and expressive of Elokus. That the lowest and darkest of elements will become completely transparent to the Eibishter and bottled to the Eibishter completely. So the Alter Rebbe goes on to say, how is that accomplished? That's Maseinu V'Avodeseinu. That's the work of the Jewish people throughout Golus. Throughout all the time in which we learn Torah and do mitzvahs, and when we learn Torah and we do mitzvahs, we do it with the gashmiistic materials of this world. The physical is what blocks Hashem more than anything else, because physicality appears to exist without a source. It just is in existence that claims to have beingness, and it's not coming from something. And that's why gashmius is the biggest blockage on Elokus, on the Eibishter. And when we learn Torah and do mitzvahs, primarily mitzvahs, we're mezachich the gashmis, we purify the gashmis until it will be a time when the Eibishter will fill the entire earth. When all of earth, the physical world, will be filled, v'nigla kvoid Hashem, the glory of Hashem will be revealed, v'ro kol basar, and flesh will see, kipi Hashem diber, that everything in the world is glat elokus, is only Eibishter and einoid milvadai. So that's the idea of learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. We do the Torah and the mitzvahs with the physical aspects of this world, which the reason our world is considered the lowest world is because it's a world that is filled with klipa. Klipa means a shell. A shell means that which conceals and blocks Hashem. So just simply, when we take the hide, just very, very bekitzer, the Alter Rebbe explains, when you take the hide of tefillin, and make it into tefillin. You take the hide of an animal and you turn it into tefillin. You took a substance that until now was not expressing the Eibishter. It was denying God because it's claimed the animal says I exist for no power creating me. And now when you take that animal and you turn it into Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that the very hide of the animal is expressing the unity of God, and you're doing mitzvah with it, then you've transformed the material to express Hashem. Now, obviously, mitzvahs are being done only with a very little portion of the materials of this world, because Jews are only a minority, and a minority of the big, gigantic, ginormous world. And here we're saying we have to take all the resources, all the material aspects of the world, and make them and polish them, that they should be able to reveal the Eibishter, while Seif Kol Seif, only a little bit of the Gashmius becomes elevated. So the Alter Rebbe says two things. First of all, by taking one bird and bringing it for a carbon, you elevate all the birds. When you're taking a little piece of wool, and you're making it into tzitzis, into a talis, you're elevating and refining all the wool in the world. That's number one. Number two, the Alter Rebbe explains how we really come into contact with much larger amounts of the physical world than we seem to be directly interacting with, because in order for us to survive, we have to consume large parts of this world. We are consumers. We eat. The food that we eat gives us the energy to do a mitzvah. All that food gets elevated into Kedusha. We take it from Klippa and we elevate it into Kedusha. When we use that energy either in davening or we do a mitzvah with it, it becomes elevated. And this works in a domino effect, like I discussed at other times, I don't know if over here, is that when one thing you do has a whole chain reaction, because preparing that food that you eat, where Gentiles who are living their lives devoid from any direct connection with expressing Elokus, but if they prepared the food, they put the cereal box in Kohl's supermarket, and you buy it from there, they too are being refined because you ate that cereal and said shahakal and then used the energy of the cereal to do a mitzvah. You cause a birur in that Australian Gentile who doesn't really have much with Judaism and godliness. And so it goes back farther and farther and farther and farther, and we have no idea what kind of impact we have on the physical world with every mitzvah that we do. So the Alter Rebbe explains, this elevation is called elevating the Klippa. But we know in Chassidus that there's two levels of Klippa. There's what's called Klippas Noiga. Klippas Noiga is the glowing shell. And then there is a concept called Shalosh Klippos Hatmeos, the three impure Klippas. These are elements in the world that are so dark, that are so Hashem is so blocked because the Klippa, the shell, is so dense and so opaque and so thick that it doesn't allow you at all to be able to open it up to Elokus, to get Lachkeit, to reveal the spark of holiness that's in it. Therefore, we learned already in the beginning of Tanya, in Perek Vav, Perek Zayin, and Perek Ches of Tanya, that there are certain elements of this world that Hashem tells us to keep away from. And those are all the stuff that are not kosher. All non-kosher food, all non-kosher substances of the world, we can't directly interact with them to elevate them because they're not from Klippas Noga. They are from the three impure Klippas that are so obscuring and blocking of Hashem. They're unelevatable. All we can do is reject them and push them away. Our avoda focuses on Klippas Noga. And the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain that the general life force of the physical world, the general life force that sustains the physical world, of course it's coming from the Eibishter, but it's being delivered to the world through the Lovush, through the garment of this shell of Klippas Noga. So Klippas Noga is the main chayos of the world. And then there is also some elements of the world which are really dark stuff, which are the three impure Klippas. Our avoda focuses on the Klippas Noga. When we take all the elements of Klippas Noga, and it has to do with the Jewish people traveling the entire world, doing Torah and mitzvahs. In the beginning, as the Rebbe explains in many sichos, we all hovered around Eretz Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael or close to Eretz Yisrael. But as time went by, we had to complete the tikkun of the world, elevating all of Gashmias. We had to literally cross the entire globe, all the way to the United States of America, all the way to Australia, to elevate that which is the farthest, most disconnected from God, the Klippas Noga in all of its entirety. When the Alter Rebbe says, when we complete the elevation of Klippas Noiga, Moshiach is here, because the world is now a keli and a vessel to host the Eibishter, for Hashem to be fully revealed. Comes a big question. What's with all the non-kosher stuff? What's with all the dark klipot? What's going to be with these things? How are they going to be elevated? Shalosh Klippas Atmeis is large chunks of the world. How are we going to deal with them? So the Alter Rebbe says, don't worry about that. Why shouldn't we worry about it? Because they are naturally, without having to do anything, going to disintegrate, and they're going to fall away, and they're going to be completely nullified from existence. The three dark klippas. Everything that's associated with three dark klippas, without effortlessly, they're going to be broken, they're going to dissipate, they're going to disappear. The spirit of impurity is going to be nullified. Why? If we're not destroying him, if we're not working directly with them, how are they automatically going to be dismissed? How are they automatically going to suffocate to death? So here's a very important idea for the entire class today. And that is that Klippas Noiga acts as not only as a klippa that conceals Hashem, but Klippas Noiga also acts as a transmitter, as a conduit to bring the divine energy all the way down into the three impure klippas. That means something like this. Since the Eibishter is really the source of everything, and Hashem is giving chayos to everything, how can klippa even exist? How can something that's denying God, something that's blocking Hashem, even exist if its entire existence it's receiving from the Eibishter? So the Alter Rebbe, as he explains, it says like this: since Klippas Noiga is not a completely dark klippa, Klippas Noiga is a mix of good and bad. In Noiga there is goodness as well. So the way the system works, again, these are all ideas that one should study and learn hours and hours of Chassidus for each of these concepts to really understand them, but this is not the point of this class today. I'm just trying to do a more broader picture in which you are going to see, and I think a stunning parallel, something that's happening in the world in such a clear way, which is mamish clearly everything we learn in Tanya about what has to happen in the process of Moshiach coming. So it comes out like this. The Alter Rebbe says like this: the Eibishter does not sustain klippa directly. Klippa, which is anti-God, lo yigrach hara, Hashem does not live within klippa or give it energy, give it life. The way it works is that the chayos is really given only to kedusha. Klippas Noga, this glowing shell, is a mixture of good and bad. So the good from Klippas Noga, since it's good, it's able to receive vitality and energy from Kedusha, from holiness. Once the Kedusha, the divine energy, is transmitted to the good of Noga then mixes it with the bad of Noga. So the good of Noga gives energy to that which is Ra, the negative of Noga. Then, from the negative of Noga, which is not really as evil as the three impure klippas, but since they already have this chayos, this energy, they can now transmit from the three impure, from the dark side of Noga, it can go into the three impure klippas, and that's how they have their sustenance and their life for evil to exist in this world. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, when we concentrate on Klippas Noga, and what do? Through all the acts of Torah and mitzvahs that we do, we extract the good from Noga, and we elevate it and to connect it to Kedusha. Once the good of Noga separates from the bad from Noga, so the bad from Noga loses its chayos, loses its energy, because its entire energy is from the good of Noga. Once the bad of Noga becomes lifeless, energyless, contentless, without anything, then the three impure klippas just suffocate to death because they have no chayas and they have no energy and they're eradicated automatically. And therefore, in our avodah, it's two things. Torah and mitzvahs general, which means involving in Inyanei Kedusha, doing matters of holiness, but in Chassidus puts a very big emphasis that when it comes to the mundane elements of life, which is more the territory of Noga, that which isn't Kedusha, that which isn't holy, that means like your daily lunch, you're eating kosher food, it's very, very important that you do a birur. That means they kol masecha yeh l'shem shamayim. That when you are eating your lunch, you take that sandwich and you make a bracha on it, and you eat it for the sake of serving Hashem. You caused a birur, a separation. The good in the food is elevated to Kedusha. The klippa that's there disintegrates and falls, and all the dark stuff that are feeding off this that you don't see and I don't see are automatically dead because they have no more chayas. That's the idea. The Alter Rebbe says, when we complete this work, and here's the lashon the Alter Rebbe says, once we take the klippas noiga that's in the world, that really is also part of our being, because our nefesh habahamis, our animal soul, is also a mixture of good and bad. It's also a noga entity. When we elevate our nefesh hamis and separate the good from bad in ourselves, and also in the substances, the chelik in the world that is connected to us, and the Alter Rebbe says every single Jew has a portion of the world, of the noga, of that world, that is directly plugged into your soul. So when you elevate yourself, you bring an elevation in all these elements of chelik sheba'olam in this part of the world. So once that happens, ma'acha sheklolis nefesh achiyunis sheklolis Yisrael and the Jewish people, tia merkava kedoisha is going to become a chariot la Hashem ta Hashem. Azai then. Gam klolis achayus shel olam hazeh, the general life force of this world, shehu klipas noiga achshav, that today's days, it's part of this noga, eitz hadas, tov v'ra, mixture of good and bad, is now, Teitze, she will go out, yeah, the word uz, I just noticed it for the first time here. Mitimasa v'chalasa, she will go out from its tumah, from her impurity and her disease. What's her disease? That klipas noiga is mixed with all these parasites, with all these dark things that are feeding off her. V'tala l'kedusha, klipas noiga will then be elevated to holiness. Liyos merkava l'Hashem, to be a chariot for God. Be his galus kevoidoi, when the Eibishter will reveal himself in the gashmias of this world. V'ro kol basar yachtov, and all flesh will see Hashem's emes. V'afiyai aleim, and Hashem will appear upon the world. Ba'adar go'oin uzoi, with the splendor of his might. V'yamolei kavoid Hashem as kol aretz, and the glory of God will fill the entire earth. And the Yisrael yidu ayin b'ayin, and Yidden will see clearly, face to face. Ki b'matan Torah, like by Matan Torah, we can see Hashem, the Eibishter, mamash in the physical. Then I'm skipping a few words. Val yedei zeh, and this is what's negeya for us today. What we just said. Noiga elevated. What happens to the three impure klippas? Val yedei zeh yizbalu v'yizbatlu legamri. They will rot and they will be nullified completely. Kol hasholish klippis atmeis, the three impure klippis will be completely cut off from their life force. Why? Why will they automatically be nullified? Ki yenikasan v'chiyosan mahakadusha, because they're deriving energy from kedusha achshav hu ayadei klipas noiga. Now they are receiving their sustenance through klipas noiga. Hamimutzas beineim, that acts as a converter. It's like when you go to the States and you have your phones, you're used to your appliances that you use your Australian type of outlet. So you need to buy a converter. What does that do? It converts the energy from, I think, 120 voltage, I don't know what the voltage over here that is being used, the system, 240. So you use that conversion. If you don't have the converter, you can't plug your thing in. It's going to blow a fuse. It's not going to work. So klippas, the three impure klippas, the real dark stuff in the world, can't plug into holiness. They'll be destroyed. So they plug in through klippas noiga. But once klippas noiga is now inside the holy, it too is holy, and the rav noiga is gone. So the three impure klippas is done. So the Alter Rebbe says, comes out that the whole tachlis of Yemoisa Moshiach and Tchias HaMeisim, which is the revelation of Hashem in this world, all of that is dependent in us elevating the klippa inside of us, which is klippas noga, and once we do that, the world is refined. Now the Rebbe told us in 1990 that we finished the work. We've elevated all of klippas noga. The Rebbe said we've nigmar havodas habirurim. We finished already elevating the world. L'chora, we have to say that we should be able to see this already. We should be able to start seeing it in the world. Are we to be just believe that all these are only ruchniistic inyanim in some spiritual place? That's the opposite of Moshiach. It has to be revealed already in the concreteness of this world. So here's an amazing thing. In Parshas Shmini, which is that Moshiach Diga Parsha that we spoke about, Shmini number 8, Chanukah Shmoina. In Parsha Shmini, it speaks about kosher and non-kosher animals. And it mentions there which animals are kosher. These are the animals, in order for something to be kosher, it needs to have two signs. And these split hooves and chew its cud. Malagera and Mafreses Parsa. These are the two simanim to make something kosher. It mentions that there are a few animals that have one sign. They don't have two signs, there's one sign. Most non-kosher animals don't have any of the signs. Then there are 4 animals that have one of the signs. What are the 4 animals? The 4 animals are a camel, a gomel, a shafan, a rabbit, and an arneves, which is a hare or whatever, some kind of, also type of a rabbit kind of an animal. In any case, and then the fourth one. The fourth one is the pig. That's a chazir. Chazir. Now, the three of them all have one sign. The sign that they have is that they chew their cud, but they don't have split hooves. The chazir is the only one animal that has split hooves, and it stretches out its legs to say, look, I'm kosher, but it doesn't chew its cud. And it's not, and therefore it's not malagera, it's not a kosher animal. Okay? So the Tzemach Tzedek brings from Sefer Ma'orei Oyer, Kabbalah Sefer, that these four animals that we're talking represent these four klipos, the three impure klipos themselves. Why are four animals singled out from all the non-kosher? Because they embody and represent the four animals, the four klipos that there are. The three impure klipos that are completely dark, as we said earlier, that are not elevatable, and klipas noiga, the one klipa that is unholy, but it's something that needs to be transformed and it needs to become holy. That's why the Tzemach Tzedek brings, we know that from all animals, we say that chazer, even though the chazer is the ugliest, if we can say, from all these animals, the one that's the symbol of the ultimate non-kosher animal is the pig. Yet the strange thing is that it says that osid chazir li toyer, that chazir, pig, is going to become in the future tahor. It's going to become kosher. The pig is going to become kosher. Now the Mefarshim have a very hard time. Exactly, first of all, where's the origins of this idea, osir chazir li toyer? What's its origins? And what does it mean, osid chazir li toyer, that the pig will become kosher? The Yarchei HaKadosh says, you can't say that the Torah will change. The Torah doesn't change. If chazir is not kosher, then how can it become kosher? The Yarchei says, because the pig will change. The Torah says explicitly the reason why the pig is not kosher. The pig is not kosher because v'hu gera lo yigar, because it does not chew its cud. The Yarchei says when Moshiach will come, the nature of the pig will change. The pig will begin to chew its cud to be ma'alegera, so it will have both simanim. And once it has both simanim, it isn't necessary. It's not kosher anymore because the Torah gave a reason for its lack of kashrus. That's the Yarchei. There's a fascinating Rabbeinu Bechaya. Rabbeinu Bechaya says that he talks about this idea of osid chazir litoyer. And he says, he brings Medrash Tanchuma. So the Yarchei says, and the Tzemach Tzedek again, in this piece of, when he brings the Ma'orei Oyer, is also connecting it to this idea, that these four animals that we're talking about, which one of them represents Klipas Noga, and the other ones, the other three represent the three impure Klipas, that they are also corresponding to the four kingdoms, the four powers in the world that have enslaved the Jewish people. We know there are Arba Malchiyos, there are four Goliyos. There is Golus, Mitzrayim is not counted because that's a shoresh to all of them. There is Bavel, there is Paras, there is Modai. Bavel is the ones who destroyed the first base of Mikdash, the first temple, Nebuchadnezzar. Paras is the conclusion of the exile of Bavel. It's kind of flowed into the Golus of Paras, where the story of Purim takes place. Persia, right? Iran. So you got Iraq and Iran. And then eventually, and then you have Yavan, the story of Hanukkah, the Greeks. And these are the three impure powers that don't become kosher. And then the fourth power that becomes, the fourth power, which is the worst of all of them, which causes the most suffering and pain to the Jewish people and the longest exile from all the other exiles, but Dafke, the pig, Osid Chazer Li Toyer, refers to Golus Edom. That Edom is compared to a Chazer, and therefore the Rabbeinu Bechaya brings, he brings for V'yeshnis Chodesh HaKosem She'osid Lahachzir Atorah Le'yoshna. That the pig is called a Chazer. Chazer comes from the word to return. They are the ones who are going to bring the crown back to Moshiach. They are going to return the crown, Liyoshna, to its original, to its old days. Another medrash says it, different lashon. Asid lahachzir atara libaleha. They're going to bring the crown back, Liba'aleh, to the ultimate owner of the crown, which is the Jewish kingdom, Yaakov, manifesting in the kingdom of Yehuda, manifesting in the kingdom of Menachem Moshiach. It's going to be returned to by who? Chazer, the Chazer itself, Edom itself, is going to bring this crown. Then he goes on, the Inyan, and he says an amazing thing. He says the two Batei Migdash, the two Beis HaMikdash, were built through the Jewish people. The first Beis HaMikdash was built through Shloimeh, Shum Zera Yehuda. The second Beis HaMikdash was built through Zerubbabel, that was also from Zera Yehuda. V'nasa Yedei Koresh gave permission, Cyrus gave permission, but actually it was built through Zerubbabel, which is a Jew. Aval Abayas Ashlishi, the third Beis HaMikdash, Asida Umma Zu Livnoisai. This nation is going to build it, and they're going to get it done under budget, right? This nation is going to build it. They're going to return the crown to its Yoshna because they were the ones who destroyed it. They're going to fix it. And he says, the main explanation is ala koyach shaloi, the power of Esav, the power of Edom, who causes the biggest suffering and pain to the Jewish people. And in the future, Yashiv is going to return imshar kol hakoychos, with all the koychos, lazor v'litmoich liYisrael, to assist and to help the Jewish people. That's the end, the destiny of the Chazer, the destiny of Edom, is that their conclusion is that as much as they persecuted and butchered and caused unspeakable pain to the Jewish people, in the end, their very energy is going to become a supportive power to the world, because they're represented in the fourth animal, which is the Chazer, which is Asid Liyitar, which is going to become kosher in the end of days. We understand it when we connect more to the spiritual dynamics of it. That what? That the Chazer represents, the B'Tzemach Tzedek says, from the Ma'orei Or, it represents Klipas Noga. So on the one hand, you see, when we look at Klipas Noga, it's not so bad, right? It's a mix of good and bad. But anybody that learns Chassidus knows that by a Chassidish Farbrengen, the real animosity that we have, the one that we go after more than anybody else, is Klipas Noga. Chassidus is very, 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 very concerned with a person's behavior when it comes to the kosher, the permissible. That which is not kosher, that's for sure not kosher. That's bad, that's not, that. Chassidus is very, very much involved with that which is permitted. That when a Yid is involved and engaged in a permissible world, you have to do it for the sake of heaven. Why? Because Klipas Noiga, even though it's not as ugly and as bad, it supports all the other klippas. And what does that mean in our lives, for instance? If a Yid Chas v'Shalom doesn't bring in Kedusha into his mundane life, that causes such a grupkeit. It causes the person to become so coarse, so thick, so unaware of the Eibush there, and then automatically a sin is possible. A Jew shouldn't be able to sin, because you should be aware of the Eibush. But when a Yid Chas v'Shalom thickens his Klipas Noiga, his Ra of Noga becomes thicker and thicker, you become so dark that you can Chas v'Shalom support and give life to what is really, really dark. So the same is also when it comes to these world powers. Edom is not the three impure klippas, but they enable all the other powers of klippa in the world. We know one of the descendants of Edom is who? Amalek. What does it say about Amalek? Reishis Goyim Amalek. They give all the power to all the other nations. So Edom is this power. Okay, fine. But what we see from here is that in the end, there has to be some kind of a separation and a refinement happening in Edom. So now let's take for a moment and ask the question, who is Edom? Edom is Rome, okay? Edom is Rome. They destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. The Abarbanel explains that what does Edom have to do with Rome? Edom was a country next to Eretz Yisrael. He explains that the founders of the Roman Empire were really Edomites who came to that area and they built that empire. Therefore, it's really Edom that are the founders of Rome. Now, Rome was a powerful, ruthless empire, destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and put the Jews through the worst The worst suffering, what happened by the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the killing of I spoke about this the other day, of the Asara Harugei Malchus, the 10 martyrs, what they've done is unspeakable. But their Malchus had to collapse, and it did. But what came in their place? What came in their place is Christianity. Christianity is, that's why the seat, what happens in Rome after Rome falls, Rome becomes the capital of Christianity. That's where the Pope is, that's where the entire religion is based. And then you see also it's a klipas noga, because till then all other nations were pagan. They're a mixture of good and bad. They have certain beliefs of Judaism, but mixing it with klipa, mixing it with bad. Fine. We have to say that the Christian world is a world that has to have some kind of a bidur, some kind of a purification. Part of the Christian world is elevated and part of it is separated. So I think we can say, and I think it's quite obvious, that there is that the realm of the world of Christianity has kind of evolved into two stages. There is that old European Christian, which is the Catholics and the Protestants, which they believed very, very strongly, this was their belief system, is that the Eibishter, because we did not accept the Moshiach, and therefore the Eibishter cut off his relationship with the Jewish people, and the Eibishter dumped us, and he chose the new Jews. The Christians are the new Jews, and he made a new covenant. He broke his covenant with the Jewish people, he made a new covenant. And the biggest proof that the Eibishter is not supporting the Jewish people anymore, and he doesn't like the Jews, and he dumped the Jews for the new Jews who are the Christians. The proof is, take a look at the Jews suffering. Can you believe it? No nation in the world suffers as much as them. Therefore, in order for them to be Mahadrin and Mahadrin min Mahadrin, in order for them to bring about their supremacy, their strength, who they are, they had an extra Hidur mitzvah in the Inquisition, in the Crusaders, in all the long, bitter exile when Jews were suffering in the Christian countries. The more the Jews suffer, the more downtrodden the Jews are. It's not only about destroying the Jewish people, it was also validation of themselves. They are important. They are God's people. Now we see a whole new movement in the Christian world that's almost a new Christianity. And I'm not so familiar with the ganze religion of the Christian. I'm not just so familiar. I'm not familiar at all. But yet we do see, and I'm not sure if it's limited only to the evangelicals or it's also, but we do see hundreds of millions of Christians subscribing to a new idea in Christianity. And that is, instead of Chas v'Shalom, the Eibishter severing his connection with the Jewish people, on the contrary, the Jewish people remain Hashem's beloved people. They remain the Eibishter's, and therefore the ultimate blessing for a Gentile is if he can assist the Jewish people. Va'avorcha mevarachecha is their motto. Those who bless the Jewish people are blessed, those who curse the Jewish people are cursed. And we see that these people have a unbelievable impact in the world, and this is the power of all pro-Israel lobbyists in the United States of America, in the Congress, in the Senate. Primarily the strong part now is the Senate, and the entire movement of being so pro-Israel and being so assistant, and so it's all coming from Christians who have like this new Christian idea that Jewish people remain the apple of God's eye. Now you're going to say, but it's still, and here's the thing, they travel from across the world to Eretz Yisrael. You can see them all the time visiting. They're going all over. They're working on the vineyards. They're assisting in the vineyards. They're singing Hallel, Kiviyachol. They're singing Hallel while they're picking grapes for free, for non-pay, to assist in the prophecy of the rebirth of Israel. They know the Nevuahs much better than they quote it, how the Eibishter is promised, how these hills are going to come back to life again. I went with a tour. It was Schwartz's Einakel, it was Bar Mitzvah, and we joined their tour on Sunday. We came to Gush Etzion. So in Gush Etzion, they have a settlement there, and they have a museum. And in the museum, they have a movie that they show. It's a very intense movie, because there were fighters in Gush Etzion before 1948, and they were fighting on that hilltop. and they were cut off from outside help, and therefore they were left alone, and in the end all of them were killed, were massacred by the Arabs. So they show this whole story, and of course they turn it into a film, so it's very moving. And at the conclusion of this film, like when it's over, and you literally, the last thing is the murder of all these Jews in that bunker, men and women. Suddenly the screen goes up, and you're in the literal bunker where all these Jews were killed, and you're literally speechless, you're shaking from what just happened. Very powerful. And as we're standing here, no one can say a word, suddenly I turn around, there's a whole group of Christians there, and the leader of them is standing there and saying, take a look what it took for these Jews. They gave their lives for this holy land, for this place. Therefore, our support has to be not just external, but deep and powerful. We are part of the Renaissance and the miracle that's happening here. Now, Jews were so deeply impacted, we couldn't talk. He was able to talk, but it was so moving. And they're all standing there, and they're all wearing this thing. It says, those who bless them will be blessed, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, as Jews, we're very suspicious of Christians. So as Jews, we're saying, they want, that's not l'shem shamayim, it's not pure, it's not holy. So I just want to say one thing. The Rambam says in Hilchis Melech HaMoshiach, that the whole coming of Yoshke on the first place, the whole Christianity in the first place, was in order to prepare the world liyasher derech lemelech HaMoshiach, to prepare the world with the concept of tikkun olam, that one day there was going to be peace in the world, that there was a Mashiach supposed to come, certain monotheistic beliefs in the Eibishter, even though they have a shittuf going, but whatever it is, the Rambam says that, can you imagine, the Christian world that has caused the most suffering for the Jewish people, and that whole movement was an improvement and a stepping stone for Mashiach. So how much more when you take a look at the Christian world, and a part of that Christian world moving so far to the side of holiness. There is one last tikkun. They have the wrong guy. Fine. But the Etzem Inyan, they're very close, because the fundamentals are there. The moment they'll see Moshiach, they'll all come running. They'll all concede with joy, with happiness. It's just a small little tikkun, a small little alignment. All they need is a small little alignment. But literally, and you're talking about hundreds of millions of people across the world. They just announced by their convention in Yerushalayim, they just announced that they're setting up 100,000 ambassadors to go around the world and generate pro-Israel. This is unbelievable. Now, what's interesting is these two worlds of Christianity, the old Christian and the new Christian, these two worlds is the symbol of the old Christian world was a statue in a place that we might have heard of recently called Notre Dame. There was a statue over there that had, obviously that was a place that burnt the Gemara, the Talmud. That was a place of spewed anti-Semitism, but that building was constructed to represent the victory, the triumph of Christianity over the Jewish people. So they have a statue over there. And in that statue they have two women. One is standing proudly, she has a crown, she's standing proudly, she's looking up in all the glory, she's wearing royal clothing, and I'm not exactly what she's holding, but it's, I saw it then when after this, the story but that's her. It represents the Christian, the woman of Christianity. Then there's the other woman. The other woman is looking down. She has a snake wrapped around her eyes, showing on the power of darkness that she's looking down. She's holding the luchos, and the luchos are falling out of her hand as it's falling to the floor. She's looking down in shame, representing the victory, so to speak, the new covenant over the old covenant. The ira loikim mishupeles. Judaism has fallen. Rome is the new seat of connection. We are the chosen people. So when we talk about klipas noiga being nizbarer, a separation of good and bad happening in the world of the Chazir, which is Edom, which translates into Christianity. So we're seeing one part of Edom being elevated, and what happened with them? an interesting thing. On right before Pesach, a fire broke out and devastated Notre Dame. When did it happen? It happened when in France was Yud Aleph Nisan. Here probably was also Yud Aleph Nisan, but in New York it was still Yud Nisan, but in France it was Yud Aleph Nisan. If you take a look at the Rebbe Sicha, the Rebbe talks about in Tafshin Nun Beis, Parshas Vayishlach, Tafshin Nun Beis. The Rebbe talks about how Beis Yaakov, the Rebbe talks a lot, and you see in Tafshin Nun Beis, the Rebbe talks a lot about the tikkun of Esav. Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, 5751, 5752. And the Rebbe speaks, and the Rebbe says that Esav, that Yaakov is compared, V'hoya Beis Yaakov Eish, that Yaakov is compared to a fire. Beis Yosef, in the house of Yosef, is compared to a lahava, a flame. And like what Rashi says, the flame of Yaakov will go out, the flame of Yosef will go out, and will burn down, or will burn Esav, will destroy Esav. So the Rebbe mentions an interesting thing. The Rebbe is speaking in that Sicha. I don't have time now to read the whole thing for you, but the Rebbe is talking about in that Sicha that he's talking about Sarfas, he's talking about France, and he says how Dafke the Alter Rebbe, the Friediger Rebbe, does the last tikkun coming from 770, does the last tikkun in Sarfas and in France. The Rebbe uses this pasuk, and the Rebbe says, "V'hoya Beis Yaakov." Who's Yaakov? The house of Yaakov is referring to Admor Azak the Alter Rebbe, because he's the third from the Hasidic Rabbeim. The Baal Shem Tov is the equivalent to Avram Avinu. The Magid is equivalent to Yitzchak. Beis Yaakov is the third. That's the Alter Rebbe. Who's Beis Yosef? Yosef is the Eila told us Yaakov Yosef. He says that's the Friediger Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. And who's Beis Yosef? Not Yosef himself. The house of Yosef. The house of Yosef is the Rebbe. And that's the lahava, that's the flame that will put an end, that will do a tikkun in Esav. So we see that the symbol that represented that old ancient Catholic world of the anti-Semitic Christians, that was devastated. And I just read, these statues didn't come down, but their entire spire and their whole roof collapsed in a fire. Amazing that it happened Dafka on Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's, when Beis Yosef is standing in all the Mazeloi Goyver, the Rebbe's birthday, when his Mazel is strong. And take a look at this amazing thing. Hold on over here. Until now, they were thinking, right afterwards, people pledged they're going to rebuild it. They're going to rebuild it, they're going to rebuild it. Billions of dollars came in. So now, I just read this from the USA News. Here you go. What does it say? Hold on. No, give me a second. This is USA Today. Notre Dame Cathedral empty for Christmas, may never recover from devastating fire. And now they bring it said the church, which dates back more than 800 years, has been left so fragile that there is a 50% chance it can't be saved. And I tell you, it can't be saved. Fartik. That was such a blow. But it represents something very deep. That element of klipas of noiga, that dark side of it, kaputo. What we're seeing now, as terms of the support, that's incredible. But I really will take this much further. And that is, in addition to the general fixing, the general Christian world, which is Esav, there is something about the United States of America that stands out. The United States of America is a certain, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, but the United States of America, it seems like, is a certain, within Esav itself, it's a certain evolving, elevated element of Esav. As Esav gets its purification, because the United States of America was the first government that was set up to give liberty to all, to give justice for all, and so on and so forth. And America always, if you take a look, was always a big brother to Israel. Always the great supporter of Israel. The Russians sided with the Arabs. The United States always sided with the Jewish people, with Israel. But it was always a klipas noiga. What do we mean? It was always wishy-washy. It wasn't completely shoulder to shoulder standing. Not only was it a klipa, but it allowed for a lot of elements, for other powers of anti-Israel. It gave a hechsher. It enabled by, as we'll see in a moment, We see, first of all, during, let's say, the time of the Second World War, during the Holocaust, the United States, on the one hand, was what liberated the United States Army, together with the British and together with the Allies, but mainly waited for the United States to come in. For that, greatly, they liberated the camps and so on and so forth. Great assistance. But on the other hand, when they had the chance to bomb what was his name, Roosevelt then, had the chance to bomb the train tracks that were taking the millions of Jews, and they didn't do it. So many Jews were able to be saved by being allowed into the United States. They closed the doors, and so on and so forth. So it was as a chazer, a kosher chazer fistel, a yes and a no, support and no support. When it comes to Eretz Yisrael, they always, on the one hand, supplied weapons, but every time Israel was about to do something great in the defense of itself, there was always pressure coming from Washington to stop. All right? So the yeah and no, assisting and not assisting. Within the United States government itself, there were different groups. There was the State Department. With the State Department, there was always a nasty klippa, very, very anti-Israel, very pro-Palestinian. And so it was throughout this entire, they also gave money to the Palestinians, also supported many Palestinian aspects and so understand something. When a suicide bomber, when a guy straps himself with Chas v'Shalom, a suicide vest, and he goes out to commit a crime, I mean, that's real evil, right? You say, this person is a killer, this person is a murderer, he's going to kill innocent people. But the question is, he will only do it because he has a certain, but he feels that he has legitimacy. Why does he have legitimacy? Because people call him a freedom fighter, right? By just not calling him a terrorist, by switching it very slightly and calling this person a freedom fighter, you have just given him legitimacy. That means, and if you think about the New York Times, the United States media, and even the State Department and the government, which says, when they say, there was violence, instead of saying terrorism, violence on both sides. All these things is a klipas noiga. It's supporting, but it's also allowing for an anti-Israel, for the sholish klipas atmeyas, for the real evil to exist. It needs to receive its sustenance from klipas noiga. This was until the 2016 election. When the 2016 election and Donald Trump became president, we suddenly see a shinui hafchi b'gnegeya the whole thing. First of all, he has aligned himself completely with Israel in a way like we've never seen before. By announcing the capital, Yerushalayim, the capital of the Jewish people, by announcing the Golan Heights, by just recently his announcement regarding all the settlements in Yehuda and Shomron through Mike Pompeo, that it's not inherently considered a violation of international law. That's lahepech. That gives full credibility to the Jewish people. But it's more than that. All the gifts that he has given. But on the other hand, there's another element as well. We said before, klipas noiga allows for, is the source of sustenance and chayos to the other side. What has he been doing? He completely cut the klipa off in every level. First of all, he took Iran, which the United States had been doing some dealing with, especially in the last administration, and he's literally choking them to death. He put the worst economic sanctions on them to the point that they're mamish at the verge of being completely destroyed. He took the Palestinians, he threw them out of Washington, defunded UNRWA, defunded so many of these. Now he went, and the anti-Semites on the colleges, he defunded them as well in his last executive order that he just gave on Erev Yudalid Kislev, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, the significance. It has much greater significance other than this. But this is an unbelievable change, where you see Asid Chazir Li'Toyer. You see the entire Klipas Edom becoming a full-fledged partner, of full assistance to the Jewish people, and disconnecting and stifling, literally choking, cutting off, literally, you see it in the literal sense, cutting off the chayos and the energy to the klipas that were till now feeding off this hybrid creature that was one day here and one day there, which is really amazing. But I'm going to conclude with a very interesting idea to this. It says that the Tzemach Tzedek asks a question on this notion that Edom is going to be sublimated and Edom is going to be elevated. So the Tzemach Tzedek asks, versteh nicht. The Medrash says in Parshas Truma that the Eibishter is going to receive gifts from all the nations. Moshiach is going to receive gifts from all the nations when Moshiach will come. Besides Edom. Edom he will not take a gift from. Because he said, you did Heir Ali Yisrael, you did worse to the Jewish people more than anybody else. That's why we find the four empires are also compared to gold, silver, copper, and barzel, which is steel, iron. So in the Mishkan you had gold, silver, and copper, but you did not have any steel, because Edom will be rejected. That's what it says. So the Tzemach Tzedek asks, how does it fit with what we're saying earlier, that Dafke Edom will be elevated? That's what and the Tzemach Tzedek leaves it with a tzarech ion, with a question. The Rebbe in Parshas Vayishlach brings this Tzemach Tzedek in one of the notes. Parshas Vayishlach, this is not in 5752, but in 5751, the Rebbe brings this question that the Tzemach Tzedek asks, and the Rebbe answers, V'ula yesh loymar, possibly we can say, that the Eibishter initially will not accept a gift from Edom until the Eibishter will yell at Edom. The pasuk says, Ga'ar chai, the Medrash says, you see that God will not accept, because when Edom will come to bring a gift to Moshiach, Moshiach will yell at him. The Eibishter will yell at him and say, Ga'ar, get out of here. Chayas koneh, the beast of the reed. Chayas koneh, the beast of the reeds, which refers to the wild boar, this chazer, that hangs out amongst the reeds. The Eibishter is going to yell at him and say, get out of here. Fine. So the Rebbe explains, the Rebbe says, what does it mean the Eibishter is yelling at the beast of the reed? So the Rebbe says, why is Esav, what's the connection of Esav, of Edom, to a reed? A reed is like a piece of schach, like a bamboo shoot, right? So what is Esav related to the reed? So something we've been learning in Basi and Legani, the last year is Basi and Legani, and 2 years ago. It says as follows: when Shlomo HaMelech built the first Beis HaMikdash, he married the daughter of Parei. Shlomo HaMelech married the daughter of Parei. And the Eibishter was very angry. So even though he was Mesameach, he rejoiced in the Simcha of the Beis HaMikdash, God was very angry at Shlomo HaMelech. So he sent Gavriel, and Gavriel flew and he brought a reed, carrying a koneh, a reed. He stuck it in the ground off the banks of the Mediterranean. It started to collect earth around the reed, and that became the Medrash says, Italia shel Yavan. That became Rome. That on top of that reed is where the city was built. That's why Edom is compared to a reed. Chassidus explains, and in Basi Legani it says, that idea that Edom has that stick is related, an interesting idea, related to the letter Kuf. The letter Kuf, if you look at the letter, is a hay, but it has a long left leg. And the left leg of the Kuf goes all the way down. So it says in Chassidus that the evil that's related to Edom is related to the left leg and to its long leg. In Basi Legani, in last year's Basi Legani, Taka, the year that all this happened, in the last year's Basi Legani, it says that our avoda needs to be misakin the left leg of the Kuf. How do we do that? When we amputate the left leg, the part of the leg that goes down, beneath the line that goes down, when we cut it off, then we get, instead of the word koneh, kuf nun hey, which represents the reed, we cut off the bottom part that goes below the line of the left leg, you get the word hine. So it's not koneh, it's hine. And hine represents revelation of Mashiach. Hine Elokeinu zeh, this is Elokus. Hine Mashiach ba, there's the word that Rebbe would use. Ot kumt Mashiach. And it's connected to what? the severance of the left leg of the Kollel. So the Rebbe says, this that it says that Esav will not be Nesakein, Esav is going to be rejected, that's before Hashem chops off the left leg. But once the left leg of the Kollel, of the Chazer, gets chopped off, then the Chazer becomes elevated into Kedusha. So see an amazing thing that's happening, at least in the United States of America, probably in general in the world. But in the United States, you're seeing it. Till now, the support for Israel until last year, 2 years ago, was generally considered as something that was done on both parties, on the right and on the left. Everybody stood in support of Israel. You couldn't dare open your mouth in the United States Congress and say something derogatory against Israel. You really got into trouble. That's the way it was till 2-3 years ago. When AIPAC would hold its big conference, and the Israeli lobbies, whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're right, whether you're left, they all came for support. The last AIPAC dinner, the Democrats were Schumer was there, of course, he's Ayid, and Pelosi also came. But all the candidates that are running for president, all 17 or none of, I think maybe one of them showed up. None of them came. It was unheard of that they should ignore Israel. What are we having now in the United States Congress? The Senate is completely on the right. And literally war. There's war taking place in the United States. The Senate is on one side and the House of Representatives on the other side, led by 3 Shalish Klippas Atmeis, called the Squad. Amazing. Muslims. A war against the Eibishter. And it's amazing. It said, the Rebbe says, after the left will sever itself completely, because this is a bitter that happens within Noiga. Part of it gets elevated to Kedusha. The other part gets disconnected. And then it becomes included in holiness. It's really, really fascinating to see this what we're learning in Chassidus as the final tikkun of the world, that Noiga separates. There's a part of Noiga that gets included in holiness, and there's a part of Noiga that gets disconnected. And part of the elevation of Klipas Noiga is that Sholish Klipas Atmeya suffocate and become lifeless and have no energy, is literally manifesting in the world that we're seeing now, in what's taking place in this unbelievable ichud, unification and brotherhood that's taking place between Gentile and Jew. And I spoke yesterday in the Mizrahi Shul. We see in today's world, on the one hand, we're seeing a lot of anti-Semitism expressing itself, but on the other hand, there has never been such support for Yidden in the world like we see today by millions and millions of people. It's so clear that it's almost like you're taking a side. You belong in Kedusha, you belong on the other side. It's really, really an amazing thing. Now, I'm just going to conclude with one amazing thing. I gave this talk for the women. The first time I gave this talk was for the women in Crown Heights by an Shei Chabad gathering in honor of the Rebbetzins' birthday, Chav Hei Adar. And they asked me to talk, and I went for a walk, and I was thinking about this whole idea, and I came to speak, and I was going to try to talk more about Avodah, and this was going to be my introduction that I was going to, but me, I get verschlepped in what I'm saying. So I ended up talking so much about this Kosher Chazer, that the Chazer is going to be, and taking a look at the world changing and how so much of Klipas Noga is being elevated, being supportive of Kedusha, that I didn't get to speak on other elements, and it bothered me. So when I left the talk, I left feeling not happy, and I think, why am I just speaking the political elements of it? Maybe it was wrong, maybe I should have just inspired in some other way. This was my thought. So I came home, I was staying there, and my sister lives in Crown Heights, and I was there. And again, in this state of mind, I walked over to the Rebbe's letters, and I pulled out a letter, just not writing, just pulling out, and I opened up. I almost, the Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe says, this that you write, that you're giving, I was looking, that's what you saw me looking on my phone to try to find the letter. It would be so much geschmacker if I can read you the letter word for word. But the Rebbe says, this that you write, that you're giving a shir in Tanya, and that you're learning, but now you're getting to a very difficult part of Tanya, Perek Lamed Hey. So the Rebbe, and therefore you decided that you don't want to teach any further. You don't want to teach any further from Perek Lamed Hey in Tanya because it's too difficult and you don't feel that the recipients are able to understand it. So the Rebbe says it would be kedai to continue at least till after Perek Lamed Zayin of Tanya, because over there are inyanim, fundamental inyanim about the whole purpose of everything in Lamed Zayin. Therefore, pull it through until the end of Lamed Zayin. What was this whole talk that I gave you today? And what I said over there, Perek Lamed Zayin in Tanya, that the whole completion and purpose of creation is the purification of Klipas Noiga. And then once Klipas Noiga is included into Kedusha, which, as we see, includes the elements of Edom being elevated into holiness, then that which is unholy and ungodly falls apart on its own. So that gave me a little validation, and hopefully that I'm not saying Stam Baba Maises, but that this is really true and really what's going on. Be'ezus Hashem, tomorrow there is quite a bit of completion to the ideas of what we've spoken about today. So please join us again tomorrow at 12 o'clock into this idea. Thank you.